As I read this morning's lessons, the focus to me seemed to be about miracles. Often when there is an account of a miracle, especially one about the feeding of the multitudes, I think about something our former convent chaplain said. I can't tell you word for word, but essentially it was this. Many people try to come up with an explanation about the feeding of the 5,000. For some, it is something like, oh, everyone was so enthralled with Jesus that they forgot they were hungry. Or, when people saw what was happening, they opened their own little stashes of food that they had hidden, so everyone had enough. Well, he then posed the question, why can't people accept it for what it was? A miracle. Why do people have to explain away miracles? Do we think God is unable to do miracles? What do you think? What is a miracle anyway? I looked up some definitions on Google, or Dogpile actually. These are some of the definitions that were there. An event not explainable by natural or scientific laws. An extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. Something that excites admiring awe, a wonderful or amazing act, event, person, or thing. A wonderful and surprising event that is believed to be caused by God. Well, then I got to wondering, what is the purpose of miracles? And basically I found this: to authenticate who Jesus is, the Son of God, and to show what God is like. What is his nature? In the miracles, we see not only his power, but also his love and compassion. To put it simply, I would say that a miracle is something that brings us closer to Jesus, closer to God. Let's look more closely at the gospel. Actually, Jesus had just heard that John the Baptist has been killed, so he wanted to go off by himself. Also, Jesus had just come from his hometown, where he had been teaching in the synagogue, and apparently there were many who didn't appreciate his teaching. Somehow people heard where Jesus was going and got there before he did. They had even taken their sick, and he healed them. They were part of a miracle. How do you imagine they felt? They had to have felt God's presence through Jesus, his son. After the healings, I imagine that Jesus did some teaching. I don't know for sure, but it got to be late. The disciples were probably tired and hungry and wanted the people to go away. But Jesus has them tell the people to sit down. Then he proceeds to feed over 5,000 people from 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I think we could say those people just went to church. They had just experienced a miracle. How do you suppose those people felt? How would you have felt had you been there? For some reason, I keep coming back to the thought that the Holy Eucharist is much like the feeding of the 5,000. It is a miracle. It is God showing us something about himself. It is a reminder of Jesus' crucifixion, death, and resurrection, and his great love for us. If we think of a miracle as something that brings us closer to God, then I believe that every time we come together to worship at morning prayer, evening prayer, or the Holy Eucharist, we are part of a miracle. Going back to the gospel, as I said, there had just been those who, quote-unquote, took offense at him. So I imagine that there were many from the town who did not follow after Jesus. who did not experience the miracle of seeing Jesus heal the sick, or his teaching, or his feeding of the 5,000 plus. They missed out on a blessing. I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me quite a few years ago at the convent. I had a disagreement with the former Mother Superior that wasn't pretty. The next morning at the Eucharist, I very quietly left at the peace. I couldn't go to the altar and receive communion while I was so at odds with someone. I did the same thing the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and I don't remember for how long. I didn't think much of anybody noticed. But one day, another sister, actually another former Mother Superior, stopped me and asked me about it. So I told her what had happened. She was very understanding and non-judgmental, and said that she knew that there were others that would do the same thing in such a situation. But then she said, "It's like someone having a banquet for you and you don't go." I was missing out on being part of a miracle. I was missing out on a blessing. But one last thing about miracles. Again, if we think of miracles as being something that brings us closer to God, then I believe that we experience miracles, or at least have the chance to, every day. Walking in the woods and seeing the beauty and majesty of God's creation. Listening to all the different bird songs. Watching a little baby put her feet in the ocean for the first time. Watching a baby canary peck its way out of an egg. Knowing someone is alive because he received a liver transplant. Harvesting things from a garden when you know that only weeks ago they were just seeds you put into the ground. Yes, miracles are around us every day, but sometimes we have to make it a point to look, to be still and watch or listen, to put aside our anger or hurt and go to the banquet. Maybe in the midst of these crazy days, we can pray that God will help us see the miracles He has for us in each new day. May they be a reminder of God's love for us. As someone I know once said, we can pray, "Give us this day our daily discovery." Amen.